Welcome. I'm excited to present this webinar and so happy that you could join us today. First, I'd like to give you some information on my background. I'm the coordinator for PETA's Humane Education Division, TeachKind's. I was a classroom teacher in New York City for 12 years and have taught students in all grades from kindergarten through 5th. I have a master's degree in elementary education and licenses in bilingual and TESOL education. And I've served on the executive board of the United Federation of Teachers Humane Education Committee for the past 10 years. I've always been interested in fostering children's empathy for humans and animals. Children have a natural interest in and affinity for animals, and when we tap into that, we can open the hearts of even the most troubled students. My specialty has been teaching English language learners, and I've also seen that a common love of animals can really help bridge the divide between newcomers and native English speakers. I've been conducting teacher workshops on various humane education topics for about 15 years now. As PETA's TeachKind coordinator, I focus on creating lessons that merge academic skills with animal rights issues, and that will be my focus here today. I also visit schools to conduct teacher workshops and classroom presentations and correspond with educators around the world like you who want to make a difference for animals. Here's my animal family. Cloudy, on the left, had been abandoned on the streets of the South Bronx near the school where I was working. He was supposed to be with my husband and me only as a foster. That was 6 years ago. In the middle is Ellie, may she rest in peace, whom we found shaking on the side of the road as a 6-month-old puppy. She was also supposed to be just a foster. Last year, she passed away at age 15. Spuds, my orange tabby on the right, took up residence in our driveway and pretty much demanded that we take him in 2 years ago. We knew that we were foster failures, so we didn't even pretend that he was going to be with us temporarily if we took him in. The powerful relationships that I've had with my animal companions have led me to my life's work in humane education. Now, many of us are here because we care about animals and feel that it's important to discuss animal issues with our students. Teachers are in a unique position to have an immense impact on students' lives. Throughout my teaching career, I've seen how incorporating animal issues into the curriculum can foster pro-social behavior. I've had apathetic students with difficult behavioral issues become the fiercest protectors of animals, which led to more empathy for their peers. I had a kindergartner one year who had a tough home life. His father had been incarcerated and his mother was away a lot. So he took his frustrations out on the other kids. But his natural love for animals shined through his tough exterior. I remember once he had the whole class watching and protecting an army of ants at a school picnic. I would remind him that his compassion for animals can carry over to having compassion for his peers. And even at that young age, he started to get it. I've also seen how humane education can help students academically. I've witnessed reluctant readers turning into voracious ones after learning about the plight of animals. I remember having an after-school animal club with a 4th grader who hated reading. She avoided it at all costs and was frustrated because she was below grade level. Once she learned that dogs, cats, and other animals were suffering and needed help, she became motivated. She couldn't get her hands on enough books about animals. Her teacher was so thrilled by this development that she'd allow the student to come to my room just to show me which new books she'd found in her classroom library. Kids love animals, and we can use this inclination to help them learn academic content as well as developing compassion. What we hope to accomplish in this webinar is to show how discussing animal issues and meeting academic requirements can go hand in hand. Teachers don't have to try to fit a lesson on kindness on top of an already jam-packed day. It's possible to teach compassion and meet educational objectives simultaneously. Now, please note that there's also a supplement to this webinar available on teachkind.org with all the information that will be discussed. Let's do a warm-up activity. What do you think? Is there a law that requires us to teach kindness to animals? Yes, no, or not sure? The answer is yes and no. Some states like New York, California, and Florida have specific provisions in their education laws that mandate teaching kindness to animals. In addition, 22 other states legally mandate character education, and the rest of the states support character education efforts without legislation. Character education involves teaching children to understand, care about, and act on core ethical values such as respect for others, justice, and responsibility for self and others. So teaching kindness to animals is a natural component of these efforts. We can capitalize on children's natural interest in and affinity for animals as a vehicle for teaching character development. You can find a listing of these types of laws by state on teachkind.org. Now let's examine the academic side of the coin. What Common Core learning standards can you address when incorporating animal issues into the curriculum? A, math, B, English language arts, C, none, or D, both A and B? The answer is both A and B. You can address many Common Core learning standards while incorporating animal issues into lessons in most subjects, including math, science, reading, writing, and art. Most states have adopted Common Core learning standards, and even those that haven't still have learning standards with similar academic expectations, so our discussion today will still be relevant to those states. I'll focus on ELA standards in this webinar, but I hope that you will start to see how you can blend animal issues into whatever subject area you teach. Now let's take a look at how to plan a lesson that addresses an animal issue. There are 4 key elements to keep in mind when planning the lesson. Motivation. How will it be motivating or engaging to students? Accuracy. Is the information that I'm providing accurate? Common Core. Which Common Core learning standard will it address? Helping animals. Does the lesson include suggestions for protecting or helping the animals being discussed? Animals are often included as part of the curriculum in an elementary school. However, there are frequently missed opportunities to incorporate one of the key elements into the instruction. We're going to take a look at some common lessons on animals to see if they include the 4 key elements. Let's talk about an example. A first grade class is doing a unit on informational writing. After hearing read-alouds of informational books about different animals, each student chooses an animal, conducts research, and then writes an all-about book on his or her chosen animal. The teacher conducts lessons on doing research and finding relevant factual information on an animal in books, for example, showing them how to look at text features like the table of contents. Students are given a template to use as a guide when deciding what to include in their books. They're instructed to research what the animals look like, what they eat, where they live, and what their babies are called. At the end of the unit, students share their work with their peers, and their all-about books go up on a bulletin board to celebrate their work. What do you think? Does the all-about book lesson contain all 4 key elements? Does it motivate or engage students, provide accurate information, address Common Core learning standards, and include suggestions for protecting or helping the animals being discussed? Yes, no, or not sure? This is a good lesson that helps children learn basic research skills and basic facts about an animal of their choice. But this lesson does not contain all key elements. Although it's a great start, we can easily push it to the next level so that it includes all 4 key elements. Let's look at the key elements and see how the lesson addresses each one. Motivation. This lesson is engaging or motivating to students because it taps into their affinity for animals and gives them a choice regarding which animal they study. Accuracy. The teacher provides lessons on locating key facts about an animal in trade books. Common Core. The lesson addresses Common Core learning standards for writing informational texts, including naming a topic and supplying facts, as well as participating in a shared research project. Helping animals. This is the element most commonly left out of lessons on animals, including this one. Many current children's books about animals will include some description of their plight. For example, that polar bear's habitat is being destroyed or that elephants are endangered because of poaching. In this case, it's up to the teacher to discuss what this means in a developmentally appropriate manner and to let kids know what they can do to help. You know your students best and can speak with sensitivity toward their feelings about what is happening to animals. Showing them ways to help will really empower them. This is key. Since this is really a unit rather than just one lesson, there's time for the teacher to do a quick search online about the plight of the animals students are researching. A good resource for information on a multitude of animal issues is PETA.org. Similarly, it's common for upper elementary students to research and create an infographic about an animal. On your screen is an example of what a student might produce as an infographic on polar bears. In this lesson, 4th grade students are allowed to choose the animal they wish to study. The template for the students to use as a guide includes a description of the animal's appearance, diet, and habitat, as well as what the babies are called and an interesting fact about the animal. For example, the cheetah is the fastest land animal. The teacher conducts lessons on doing internet research, including how to evaluate a website's credibility and producing clear and coherent writing appropriate to the task. Tell me what you think. Does the infographics lesson contain all 4 key elements? Does it motivate or engage students, provide accurate information, address Common Core learning standards, and include suggestions for protecting or helping the animals being discussed? Yes, no, or not sure? Again, this is a good lesson that teaches internet research skills and provides students with some basic facts about animals, but it doesn't contain all 4 key elements. Let's look at the key elements and see how the lesson addresses each one. Motivation. The lesson is engaging or motivating because it taps into students' affinity for animals and provides them with a choice regarding which animal they study. Accuracy. The teacher provides lessons on internet research and media literacy, which will help students locate accurate information on their animal. Common Core. The lesson addresses Common Core learning standards for writing informational text, including producing clear and coherent writing appropriate for the task and conducting short research projects. Helping animals. Here's where an opportunity to encourage students to help animals often gets missed. Some students will come across information on the plight of their animal while doing internet research on their own. But it's better to include a section on helping the animal as part of the template. You can direct students to PETAKids.com to find this type of information. That site is geared towards kids who are 12 and under. We're going to use the Elephant's Life comic book as the basis for creating a lesson that can be used for grades 3 through 5. It's published by PETA, and you can order a free class set from TeachKind. The comic book can also be accessed and viewed online for free on the TeachKind website. This is an ELA-focused lesson, but it can also connect to next-generation science standards. It features a discussion of elephants' lives in the wild and in circuses. Let's take a look inside. An Elephant's Life is the story of 3 young people who go to an animal-free circus and meet human performers who tell them the story of Daisy the elephant. She was rescued from a circus and now lives at a sanctuary. In the course of listening to her story, the children learn about elephants and become aware of the cruelty inherent in forcing animals to perform in circuses. The comic book starts off by listing facts about elephants in the wild, such as how they're the largest land animal with the largest mammal brain, how they communicate with each other, how they keep themselves healthy, and the structure of their family groups. It also includes facts to contrast elephants' lives in the wild with the lives of those exploited by circuses. For example, elephants walk up to 30 miles per day in the wild, but are chained and unable to exercise in circuses. And in the wild, females stay with their families their whole lives, but in circuses, they're usually separated from their mothers when they're very young. To prepare students for the lesson, we want to do the following. Tap into prior knowledge about elephants. For example, ask them questions like these. Have you ever seen an elephant? What do you know about them? Preview key vocabulary, such as captivity and sanctuary. Read the text aloud to the class or have them read with a partner or independently. For the discussion part of the lesson, we can ask students to notice key details in the text and check for understanding with basic comprehension questions such as the following. How are elephants' lives in circuses different from their lives in the wild? What happened to Daisy the elephant? If you teach English language learners or students with special needs, you'll definitely want to make sure that they're able to pull information directly from the text. This activity connects to the first standard for grades 3 through 5 in reading literature under the Common Core Standards, which says refer to details and examples in a text when explaining what the text says explicitly. We also want the lesson to invite students to think critically. Higher level questions ask the students to provide evidence for their thinking. Examining the author's point of view can open a higher level discussion, especially if students have differing viewpoints. For example, ask the following. How does the author feel about using elephants in circuses? What makes you think so? In this lesson, students will practice the skill of making inferences. You can discuss how authors don't always tell us everything. Sometimes we have to think about what the text says and combine that with our own knowledge to make an inference. There are different types of graphic organizers for developing this skill that you can find on the internet to use, but they'll have basically the same structure that you see on this slide. Details from the text added to prior knowledge help to construct an inference. Students might need to respond to a question such as, why do Tricia and Aunt Athena believe that elephants who live in circuses have a hard life? The author doesn't tell us why they believe this, so we need to look for clues in the text and add that to our prior knowledge to answer the question. We'll model inferential thinking using details from the text and prior knowledge. This is one of the hardest skills for kids to master, so going over lots of examples that walk them through the process of developing an inference is helpful. We can model how to answer an inferencing question by completing the graphic organizer step by step. We can also model how to speak about the textual information as a preface to our inference. I read that in circuses, elephants are taken away from their families and are kept chained up and unable to exercise. I know that if someone separated me from my family, I would feel really sad, and if I could not exercise, I would suffer. Aunt Athena and Tricia know that elephants living in circuses do not get to exercise and roam around, and that they are separated from their families. Family and freedom are essential to a happy life, so the elephants must be very unhappy. Next, you can give students additional inferencing questions to work on individually or with a partner. Kids may get sad about some of the information that they learn. You should address this with the same sensitivity to their feelings and caring that you always show as a teacher. And keep in mind that the empowerment that comes after they learn how to help animals will supplant their sadness about animals' plight. Using a resource like this allows you to expose students to a current issue pertaining to animals and foster their innate interest and affinity for animals, without sacrificing any time from curricular demands and what you're required to do as a teacher. The story ends by providing information to empower kids to take action to help captive elephants. The conclusion or takeaway is that animals in circuses need help. Kids can do the following: speak up for elephants, not attend circuses that use captive animals, ask local officials to ban circuses with captive animals, learn about organizations that help animals. When I've done this activity with my students, they usually ask why people would continue to use elephants when we know that their needs are not met in captivity and that they suffer. And as many of you might do, I usually ask, what do you think? In order to allow them to draw their own conclusions by discussing this with their peers and posing questions to each other. Kids are pretty savvy. They usually get to a point where they realize that money plays a part here. And we can, of course, extend the lesson. In this case, we can use the Elephant Sanctuary in Tennessee, which provides distance learning programs. These programs incorporate live streaming HD EliCam footage to teach students about the following: the histories of the elephants living at the sanctuary, daily life for elephants at the sanctuary, the difference among elephant species, and much more. Additionally, PETA has staffers in the Youth Division who are available to give Skype presentations on different animal rights issues for your class. You can contact me at TeachKind if you're interested. Are all the key elements included in this lesson? Does it motivate or engage students? Provide accurate information? Address Common Core learning standards? And include suggestions for protecting or helping the animals being discussed? Yes, no, or not sure? Yes, this lesson includes all 4 key elements. Let's look at the key elements and see how the lesson addresses each one. Motivation. This lesson is engaging or motivating to students because it taps into their affinity for a high-interest animal, the elephant. It also provides information on a current reality, and well-posed questions can encourage lively debate on the issue of using elephants in circuses. Accuracy. An elephant's life comes from TeachKind, which is a trusted resource that provides accurate information on the animal. Common Core. The lesson addresses Common Core learning standards for reading literature by referring explicitly to details in the text and drawing inferences. Helping animals. This lesson helps students learn about the plight of elephants in captivity. The comic book presented information on elephants' exploitation in circuses and contrasted this with their lives in the wild. It encourages kids to think about how elephants are used in our society and how this affects the animals. The story provides information on helping captive elephants. Additionally, examining the author's point of view about using elephants in circuses opens the door for connecting the issue to students' own lives. The lesson also provides the additional website resource for the Elephant Sanctuary, which can help the teacher offer even more concrete details about elephants and helping address their needs. Can you address additional Common Core standards by using the same resource about elephants? Yes, no, or not sure? Yes. For example, opinion writing. Do you think elephants should be used in circuses? Why or why not? You can also address additional reading standards by creating lessons on summarizing, analyzing characters, and more. As teachers, we strive to enhance our practice. How can a lesson like making inferences about elephants help support you as an effective teacher? Let's discuss how it relates to teacher evaluation frameworks, which are quickly becoming common across the country. Not every state has the same evaluation framework, but many have similar components. Let's take a look at a few components that this lesson helps us address. This list of connections to the evaluation framework is not exhaustive, but is just a taste to help get you thinking about using humane lessons to develop your practice as an educator. Knowledge of students. Evaluation frameworks tell us that effective teachers diligently assess their students' knowledge and skills, as well as their interests, and incorporate this information into their planning. We can capitalize on the interest that most students have about animals to engage them in learning. Knowledge of resources. Effective teachers look beyond the school for resources to make subjects more engaging to students. Reaching out to TeachKind for our free materials, including the An Elephant's Life comic, helps you expand your knowledge of resources in addition to supplementing the curriculum and engaging your students. Methods for guiding discussion. Effective teachers invite students to think critically, offering multiple possible answers and justifying their answers, and to frame questions in such a way that students make connections or challenge previously held views. This lesson offers multiple opportunities for higher-level questioning, and considering our society's inconsistent views and treatment of animals, skillfully posed questions can lead to a lively debate among even our youngest students. Professional growth. Effective teachers look for opportunities to grow professionally. An indicator of this component is your participation in this webinar, which is not mandatory, and I would encourage you to share this with your administration. There are many other resources out there for you to create a humane bookshelf. Here are some examples, including great informational books by Jane Goodall and PETA's president Ingrid Newkirk. The Share the World curriculum kit can be ordered for free from TeachKind. It includes an inspiring video about the treatment of animals in society, focuses on the Golden Rule, and has activity sheets for critical thinking and writing. And here are some additional resources for our Humane bookshelf for kindergarten through 2nd grade. Buddy Unchained is a good book to use for realistic fiction. It discusses the issue of chained dogs and has a happy ending. Our Farm is a book of poems told by the animals at Farm Sanctuary. An example of using this book is the wool lesson for kindergarten through 2nd grade on the TeachKind website. The Share the World video can be shown to kindergarten through 2nd grade students, and the writing activities can be modified. So let's review the 4 key elements to keep in mind when planning a lesson about animals. Motivation. How will it be motivating or engaging to students? Accuracy. Is the information that I'm providing accurate? Common Core. What Common Core learning standards will it address? Helping animals. Does the lesson include suggestions for protecting or helping the animals being discussed? And remember that this is the element most often overlooked. I hope your takeaway from this webinar is that you can use humane resources in different ways for academic purposes while also fostering empathy in students. These 2 goals are not mutually exclusive. And as this slide illustrates, you can keep copies of the comic in a bin for independent reading. You can also use it in literacy centers with task cards for finding the main idea, summarizing, and more. The An Elephant's Life comic currently comes in the form that you see here. Kids can color the pages, and it has additional activities such as a word search and other things that kids will enjoy. Be prepared for students to want to take action for animals who need help. Reach out to TeachKind if you would like assistance with ideas or resources for any humane education project that you want to undertake with your class. Please visit the TeachKind website to order a free class set of the An Elephant's Life comic that was used in this webinar and other free materials for your class. And please contact me if you have any questions. And remember that there is a supplement to this webinar on teachkind.org with all the information that's been discussed today.